There is a short list of songs that changed what rock music was allowed to be, and almost every one of them, every single one, was rejected first. Not by audiences, not by listeners, by the people in the building, the label executives, the radio programmers, the broadcasters, the gatekeepers whose job it was to decide what you were allowed to hear. They were wrong. This is how wrong they were. Number 10. The heaviest song in rock history was written during a lunch break, not rehearsed over weeks, not refined across months of studio time, written during a lunch break because Tony Iommi needed to fill 3 minutes at the end of an album. Black Sabbath had been in the studio for 2 days, recording what would become the Paranoid album. Geezer Butler, Bill Ward, and Ozzy Osbourne had gone to the pub. Iommi stayed behind with a guitar, wrote a riff, and waited for the others to come back. When they returned, Butler wrote the lyrics on the spot. Ozzy read them as he sang them. That is not a metaphor for how quickly it came together. That is what happened. Butler said it directly. We basically needed a 3-minute filler for the album. Tony came up with the riff. I quickly did the lyrics. And Ozzy was reading them as he was singing. The band didn't believe in it. It was short, under 3 minutes, which was the only reason it became a single at all. Both Butler and Osbourne thought it sounded too much like Led Zeppelin. Nobody involved was championing this song. And I need you to hold that detail for a second. Paranoid became Black Sabbath's only top 10 hit in the UK. It peaked at number 4. It defined an entire genre. It has been performed on the final night of every Black Sabbath concert across 60 years of live shows. It now sits at over 1 billion streams on Spotify. The album they named after it is considered one of the foundational records in the history of heavy metal. The song they wrote to fill time, the one nobody in the room believed in, is the reason most people know Black Sabbath's name at all. The music didn't fail to impress them. They just didn't know what they had. That distinction matters, and you are going to see it again. There is a pattern on this list. Once you see it, you will not stop seeing it in rock history. Keep that in mind. Number 9. Brian Wilson recorded 90 hours of tape for a 3-minute and 35-second song. He worked in 4 different studios across 7 months. He employed virtually every session musician in Los Angeles at one point or another. He assembled the final record the way a film editor cuts a movie. Not as a live performance, but as a mosaic of recorded pieces, stitched together into something nobody in 1966 had ever heard. The cost of recording Good Vibrations as a single exceeded what most artists spent on full albums that year. Capitol Records, watching the budget climb and the sessions multiply, filled with serious doubts about its radio viability. The song had an unconventional structure. It used an electro-theremin, an instrument so unfamiliar the listening public had never heard it on a pop record. It didn't sound like anything on the radio. That was precisely the problem, from the label's perspective. Follow this. Capitol wasn't saying the song was bad. They were saying radio wouldn't know what to do with it. They were also the most experienced record company in the country at the time. They had been making pop records for decades. They were not guessing. They were wrong. Good Vibrations went to number 1 in both the United States and the United Kingdom. The the first Beach Boys single to hit the top of both charts simultaneously. Music journalist Peter Doggett described it at the time as universally hailed as the most adventurous pop recording yet made. It was later nominated for 4 Grammy Awards and inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. Paul McCartney has said it directly influenced what the Beatles then attempted in the studio. The entire arc of what a pop record was allowed to cost, how long it was allowed to take, how complicated it was allowed to sound, shifted permanently because of what Brian Wilson refused to simplify for them. The industry said it was too unconventional for radio. Radio played it until the record wore out. Real talk. Only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's $1 coffee a month and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it. Number 8. Now you don't seem so proud. Columbia Records had a name for it. The graveyard of canceled releases. That is where Like a Rolling Stone ended up after the sales and marketing department reviewed it in the summer of 1965. The reasons were not complicated. The song was over 6 minutes long. Radio stations did not play 6-minute songs. It was electric, aggressive, confrontational, and Dylan's audience knew him as a folk singer who played acoustic guitar. The label was also unhappy with the recording itself. They thought it was too loud, too raw, too far outside the boundaries of what they'd been successfully selling. People call, say, beware, doll, you're bound to fall. You thought they were... Sean Considine was Columbia's coordinator of new releases at the time. He took a discarded studio acetate of the song, the version the label had shelved, to a Manhattan nightclub called Arthur. He asked the DJ to play it. The crowd reacted. 2 prominent radio DJs were in the room that night. The next morning, both called Columbia and demanded copies of the new Bob Dylan single. That is not an opinion. That is what happened. The label released it. Even then, the marketing department got one final move in. They pressed the 6-minute song across both sides of a 45 RPM single, splitting it in half so radio stations would only have to play 3 minutes. Radio stations refused to split it. They played the full 6 minutes, and listeners stayed. How does it feel? Like a Rolling Stone reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the summer of 1965. Held from number 1 only by the Beatles' Help. It spent 12 weeks on the chart. It changed what a rock single was allowed to be. Once upon a time, you dressed so fine, through the bumps of dime in your prime. No 6-minute record had ever performed like that. After this one, they could. The record the label put in the graveyard spent 12 weeks at the top of the American charts. They are still confused about how to explain that. Number 7. Columbia Records had a decision to make about Bruce Springsteen. His first 2 albums had sold fewer than 50,000 copies combined. Critically acclaimed, both of them, but commercial failures by any standard that mattered to the business. The head of Columbia's A&R department, Charles Koppelman, made his recommendation clearly: cut bait. Springsteen wasn't going anywhere. Koppelman had signed Billy Joel at the same time and saw considerably more commercial potential there. There were enough advocates inside the building to hold the hand that was about to drop Springsteen. Barely. They gave him one more record, one more chance. And the instruction was essentially this: make something that works. He spent 6 months on the title track alone. By the time the album was done, Columbia had committed to a $250,000 promotional campaign, an enormous sum in 1975, because what they were hearing had become impossible to dispute. Born to Run was released on August 25, 1975. It peaked at number 3 on the Billboard 200. In October of that year, Time and Newsweek put Springsteen on their covers in the same week, the first rock artist to appear on both simultaneously. The album that nearly wasn't made, saved a career, launched the E Street Band into legend, and produced songs that are still on American radio every night more than 50 years later. You are connecting this to something else right now. Good. Because what you are seeing is the same thing happening over and over on this list. The artist knows, the gatekeepers don't, and the moment the gates open, even under duress, even at the last possible second, the audience confirms what the gatekeepers refuse to believe. Number 6. Keith Richards woke up in a motel room in Clearwater, Florida, with a melody in his head. He reached for the cassette recorder on the nightstand, played 8 notes into it, mumbled the words, "I can't get no satisfaction," and fell back asleep. The tape ran for another 40 minutes and recorded snoring. When the Rolling Stones finished recording the song 3 days later, at Chess Studios in Chicago, and then at RCA Hollywood, Richards still wasn't convinced. The fuzz guitar was a placeholder. He was planning to replace it with a horn section. He'd imagined the song as something closer to a Martha and the Vandellas record. The fuzz was a sketch, a draft, not the final version. He has said this directly. His own words, "If I'd had my way, Satisfaction would never have been released. The song was as basic as the Hills, and I thought the fuzz guitar thing was a bit of a gimmick." The other Stones outvoted him. Manager Andrew Loog Oldham outvoted him. The song was released on June 6, 1965, and reached number 1 in the United States, the Rolling Stones' first American chart topper, and then number 1 in the United Kingdom. The riff Richards called a gimmick is now considered one of the defining sonic moments in rock history. Decades of hard rock and heavy metal and distortion-driven guitar music trace a direct line back to that specific sound. The sound he put on the recording as a placeholder. The sound he was planning to replace with horns. He was trying to make a different version of this song. The one that exists changed rock history. And if you have ever watched something real get passed over for something safe, you feel this. This is not a coincidence. Number 5. In June 1977, during Queen Elizabeth's Silver Jubilee, the week the entire country was organized around celebrating 25 years of the monarchy, the Sex Pistols released a song called "God Save the Queen." It described the monarchy as a fascist regime. The BBC banned it immediately. Radio stations refused to play it. Major retail chains across Britain declined to stock it. Virgin Records hired a barge, sailed it down the Thames past the Houses of Parliament, and played the song through speakers while the band performed on deck. Police boats intercepted it, arrests were made. And yet, during Jubilee Week, The sales data compiled by independent retailers and chart researchers showed God Save the Queen outselling every other record in Britain. Multiple music historians, journalists, and chart analysts have examined the available evidence and concluded that the song was the actual #1 by sales. It appeared in the official chart at number 2. A blank space appeared above it. The official chart showed Rod Stewart at the top. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is one of the most documented controversies in British chart history. The music press reported the discrepancy at the time. Nobody in the industry has ever offered a satisfying explanation for the gap between what sold and what was listed. They banned this song, pulled it from shelves, and the evidence suggests they adjusted the chart to keep it from visibly winning. It became the anthem of the British punk movement. The generational document of one of the most important chapters in rock history, the song the establishment tried to erase, is the one that defined an era. The music didn't fail to reach the audience. The audience had to go around the system to get to it. Number 4. One week before the release of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the BBC's Director of Sound Broadcasting, Frank Gillard, wrote a letter to EMI head Sir Joseph Lockwood. The letter opens with a sentence you do not expect from a broadcasting executive. He wrote, "I never thought the day would come when we would have to put a ban on an EMI record." And then they banned it.
I just had to laugh.
A Day in the Life, the final track on what many consider the most important album in rock history, was banned by the BBC on May 20th, 1967. The stated reason, the line, "I'd love to turn you on," could, in the corporation's view, encourage a permissive attitude toward drug use.
And though the news was wrong,
George Martin, who produced the record, protested. The Beatles denied it. Paul McCartney told reporters the song was about reading the Daily Mail and riding the bus. The ban stood for nearly 5 years. It was not lifted until March 13, 1972. In the meantime, the song did what it was always going to do. It was heard, and it changed the territory. Nothing in popular music had attempted what A Day in the Life attempted: the merging of newspaper headlines and orchestral abstraction and raw rock instrumentation into a single coherent statement.
having read the book.
A 40-piece orchestra instructed to build from their lowest note to their highest in 24 bars. The final chord, an E major played simultaneously on 3 pianos, ringing for 43 seconds until the sound disappeared into silence.
Nobody was really sure if he was from the House of Lords.
Music journalist Nicholas Schaffner wrote that nothing quite like it had been attempted before in so-called popular music in terms of its use of dynamics, space, and the intermingling of dream and reality.
At the news today, oh boy.
The BBC decided it was too dangerous for British airwaves. It is now considered one of the greatest recordings in the history of recorded sound. The Gatekeepers wrote it out of the story. The song wrote itself back in.
But I just had to look.
Number 3. By the fall of 1987, Appetite for Destruction had been in stores for 9 months. It had sold approximately 200,000 copies. Radio stations wouldn't play it. MTV had refused to air the video. Geffen Records president Ed Rosenblatt called A&R executive Tom Zutaut into his office and said, and this is Zutaut's direct recollection, "Appetite for Destruction is over. No debate, no discussion. The record is done."
Welcome to the jungle, it gets worse here every day.
Zutot was the man who had signed Guns N' Roses. He had told the label this band would sell millions of records. 9 months in, he had been wrong. He had one move left. He called David Geffen directly. His pitch: get MTV to play the Welcome to the Jungle video just once, and the record will explode overnight. MTV was not a fan of Guns N' Roses. The network felt the band was too aggressive, too dangerous, not what they were programming. The footage was violent and chaotic in ways that made the executives uncomfortable. Geffen made the call anyway. The compromise: MTV would air the video once, in the early hours of a Sunday morning, when they assumed nobody was watching. The switchboard at MTV lit up immediately. Every viewer who saw it called to request it again. Zutot described what happened next. The head of promotion was yelling hysterically. The video was added to regular rotation. Radio stations followed. In August 1988, more than a year after its original release, Appetite for Destruction reached #1 on the Billboard 200. It is now the best-selling debut album in American history, certified diamond by the RIA, with over 30 million copies sold worldwide.
Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games.
Slash recalled the band's original expectations with perfect clarity. We thought we'd made a record that might do as well as, say, Motorhead. They were 9 months into being abandoned by their own label when one play in the early morning hours changed everything. The music was always there. The system had simply decided not to look. Number 2.
And my spirit is crying for leaving.
Atlantic Records wanted Stairway to Heaven released as a commercial single. Jimmy Page refused, not politely, not with reservations. Page's response, in his own words: Stairway to Heaven was never, ever, ever going to be released as a single. I said it will help the album sell because it's not a single. I knew that the minute it was a single, the next thing they would want it to be an edited version, and I wasn't having that. No way. Follow this carefully. The label's plan: release it, format it, sell it as a standalone unit, was the standard move, the professional move, the move every experienced music industry executive would have recommended, and Page rejected it, on principle, because of what he believed the song deserved to be.
Voices of those who stand looking.
And by withholding it, by forcing listeners to buy Led Zeppelin 4 to hear it, he created one of the most enduring phenomena in rock radio history. Stairway to Heaven is the most played song in the history of American FM radio.
And it makes me wonder.
As of the year 2000, it had been broadcast over 3 million times. It is the biggest selling piece of rock sheet music ever printed, over 1 million copies sold. Radio stations played it without ever having a commercial single in hand.
And the forests will echo with life.
Listeners bought the sheet music without ever being able to purchase a standalone release. A radio station in Tampa Bay, Florida, launched its all Led Zeppelin format in 1990 by playing Stairway to Heaven on a loop for 24 consecutive hours. You see it now. I know you do.
Lead us to reason.
The industry's plan would have made this song smaller. A unit, a commercial transaction. Page refused the plan, and what the song became instead: mythological, untouchable, the kind of record people play for each other in cars and living rooms across 50 years. That is what Refusal made possible. They wanted to release it. He said no. The song became eternal. Number 1. In October 1975, Queen wanted to release Bohemian Rhapsody as the lead single from their new album, A Night at the Opera. EMI said no. Manager John Reed said no. The stated reason, at 5 minutes and 55 seconds, the song was too long for radio.
Too late. My time is
Radio operated on 3-minute pop singles. This was nearly twice that. Beyond the length, the structure was unprecedented. No traditional chorus, 3 distinct movements, an operatic middle section that sounded like nothing rock had attempted before. EMI executive Paul Watts heard the recording, and his documented response was this: "What the f is this? Are you mad? You know this song. You have known it your whole life. But knowing the song and knowing the truth behind it are two completely different things. Let me give you the truth."
Mamma Mia, let me go. Beelzebub has a devil.
Queen refused to edit it. Freddie Mercury said it plainly. They had made compromises before. Cutting Bohemian Rhapsody would not be one of them. Even bassist John Deacon had private fears about the decision. He reportedly worried that releasing it would prove, in his own words, the greatest error of judgment of Queen's career. The stalemate between the band and the label was resolved not by negotiation, but by an act of defiance by a radio DJ. Producer Roy Thomas Baker gave a copy of the record to Kenny Everett at Capital Radio in London, with one instruction: listen to it privately, do not air it. Everett reportedly went home, played it for his wife, and told her this song was going to be #1 for centuries. On his morning show, he began playing clips of it, telling listeners each time that his finger had slipped, that they weren't supposed to have heard anything. Each clip generated more calls, more requests, more demand for something that did not yet officially exist. Everett eventually played the full song 14 times across 2 days. Record stores were flooded with requests for a single that hadn't been released. The same thing was happening simultaneously on the other side of the Atlantic. A DJ in the United States had obtained a copy and was playing it across a network of radio stations. Baker described the situation precisely. It was a strange situation where radio on both sides of the Atlantic was breaking a record that the record companies said would never get airplay. EMI released it on October 31, 1975. Bohemian Rhapsody reached #1 in the United Kingdom, and it held that position for 9 weeks. That just changed something. I can tell, because this is not just the story of one song. This is the story of every song on this list. Not because the industry believed in them, because the industry tried to decide what you were allowed to hear, and the music found its way to you anyway, through a DJ who couldn't keep his finger off a button.
Goodbye, everybody. I've got to go.
Through a release coordinator who smuggled a record to a nightclub. Through an A&R man who made one last phone call. Through a band that spent 6 months on a title track they were one bad sales quarter away from never finishing. The music did not fail. The system decided it wasn't convenient, and the music won anyway. Every time, without exception.
Too late. My time